this is in relation to the coronavirus topic, but specifically about food waste. Now, it's something that I had kind of earmarked from before that I wanted to talk about, and I keep putting it off. But I saw this new article from Impress News, and I really wanted to talk about this just briefly, because this is as a result of coronavirus, and this just shows you the utter breakdown, the mindless following, the mindless enforcement. Right? If we were really in some kind of pandemic that the world was struggling with, at the end of the day, red tape and bureaucratic nonsense really shouldn't matter when you're talking about people starving to death because they can't get what they need. Right? So here's what we're talking about. As food banks struggle to cope with demand, desperate farmers dump unsaleable produce. Right? So how does that make sense? How can we have people standing in lines for bags of groceries because they can't feed their families, yet we've got farmers and distribution companies and dairy farmers, dumping things out, dumping gallons and gallons of milk, dumping out produce, throwing away things because they can't sell it? Why doesn't this make its way to people who are starving? Ask yourself how in the world that makes sense. Because if they did this, it would shatter the illusion of all the years before this. The idea that we have to create GMOs because we just can't feed enough people. That's always been a lie. We have always produced enough food to feed the world 2 times over. Probably more than that now. We throw away enough food in this country to feed the rest of the world. Because it's misshapen, or because we don't like it, or we're not done with it. Any number of things in a wasteful society in which we live. Now, all of this stuff is done under the guise that, well, we can't just give it to other people because that's against the law, right? I can get sued. That's not true. I've dispelled that myth 100 times over. It's not true. There are laws on the books that allow you to do so. Businesses pretend that they can't give it to the homeless because they can get sued. That's not true. I did a whole show about this, and I wish I remembered to put the link in there, but I didn't. I have an article that I'll show you that I talked about in that show. You'll even have people in grocery stores dump out good food because it's past the date that's still totally usable and literally pour bleach over it. So these poor people can't have the food that they were going to throw away anyway. Think about what it takes to do that. You can't have that. I paid for it, so you can't have it for free, even though I'm throwing it away. This is what this is right here. So we can't think as a country, as a government. Ask yourself where the Trump administration is. Where are the governments? Where are the state governments? Where are the local governors? Where are these people that are saying we have people starving and yet we're allowing these people to throw it away? Why not use the subsidization or the stimulus package, the $2.2 trillion, to buy these things and distribute them? You know what that would do? That would keep the farmers in work. That would keep the food industry, the food infrastructure in place, because you would be continuing to send it. You could buy it and send it, and that would keep people fed. You wouldn't even ultimately need to pay people because they would have food to survive. You could put a moratorium on rent for the time being. I mean, I can go off on possible solutions, but the bottom line is this is waste. Knowing waste, because they don't want to break their profit model for when this finally goes back to the way they want it to be. How disgusting is that? People are starving and they're throwing all this away. This is the one I saved from. This is from April 9th. We can't give our product away. Yeah, you actually can, because there are starving people. But the problem is that people don't, when they say they can't give it away, they're talking about they can't give it to people like companies that buy it. They can't give it to people that on the food infrastructure routes. These people, these other, grocery stores, people that sell it, I can't remember the word trying to think of, the wholesalers. Right? The point is they won't take it because they don't have anybody buying it from them. But you could go out right now and give all of this food away to people that are struggling right now. Yeah, you really could, farmers. You could give it away right now, but you're not giving it away for money. That's why. So what's happening? It's getting thrown away. And this is the article I was talking about. I wrote this back in actually, I think I wrote this before then, and I reposted it. But this, as the date says, October 10th, 2016. Ending food waste can solve world hunger. France takes step in the right direction. This was 2016 I wrote this. And I'm only going to read you 2 parts of this. The United Nations and the Agriculture Organization estimates that about 805 million people and 7.3 billion people in the world, or 1 in 9, this is in 2016, it's far worse now, were suffering from chronic undernourishment between 2012 and 2014. Yet, for the past 2 decades, the rate of global food production has increased faster than the rate of global population growth. And by the way, that's not because of GMOs. I talked about this in the show I did back then. It's actually been proven that GMOs have actually lessened the food supply. I won't get into that now, but please believe me on that. I did a whole thing about it. The world already produces more than 1.5 times enough food to feed everyone on the planet. First of all, just let that sink in. Now, I'm not suggesting that people just give things away that they work for. But what I'm saying is, in any number of circumstances, there are ways that this could be used, especially when we throw it away. And that's what this gets to. That's enough to feed 10 billion people. The world's the population peak expected by 2050. That's crazy. Currently, 1/3 of the food produced worldwide ends up in the trash every year for a variety of reasons. 1/3. The United States is by far the worst, with about 60 tons of food wasted annually. This is 4 years ago. This means that world hunger, and this is verifiably true, could literally be solved by utilizing the 33% of the world's food that is wasted. I mean, let that sink in. The amount of wasted food, is almost as outrageous as the reasoning behind its waste. Now, I won't get into it, but obviously it's about things as stupid as being misshapen, having the wrong color. Even if it tastes perfectly fine, it's because it's not sellable for these perfectly looking organized shopping fronts, right? But here's the real disgusting part. When you find out that currently Americans waste almost 40% of their food. Now, this is not from the distribution level. This is average Americans. 40%. That's $165 billion worth every year. About 20 pounds per person every month. That's what it's like to live in a wasteful society. Imagine if that could find its way over to people that are they don't know where their next meal will come from in other countries. That's waste, understand? I'm not saying you give away things you need. I'm saying things that you were going to throw away. This wasted yet perfectly edible food could fill 730 football stadiums. The percentage of waste has increased by around 50% since 1974. Now think about that. How much you want to bet it's produced? Probably at least another 25-30% just from 2016. That's my guess. In a time when California is struggling with its own resources, throwing away usable product is a negligent waste of the state's labor and natural resources that went into its production, such as water. Right? Yeah, California, that's struggling with water, and we're throwing away all this food. This gravely needed sustenance then rots in landfills, producing methane, which is a greenhouse gas that is more than 20% times as potent as CO2, which then serves to create another issue. Here's the point. So all these people screaming about, climate change and everything seemingly don't care about that. Let's talk about all the issues that are politicized, right? Can't start chopping at the bottom of the infrastructure. I mean, it's so ridiculous. But guys, the point in this whole discussion is that right now we could feed the world. I mean, you could even talk from a financial aspect. $30 billion. That's all it takes. $30 billion. And you could feed the entire world. End world hunger. The UN has made this claim every year. $30 billion. Now, again, I'm not saying that anybody should have to pay for that. But what I'm saying is if we all really cared about this, if we could just, shave off a fraction of the trillions of dollars being used for war, or a fraction of the $6 trillion we just threw at a problem that didn't need it, we could literally end one of the world's problems in the history of the world, world hunger. But no, who cares, right? Let them starve. Because we're going to throw away that weird-shaped apple because it doesn't look right to me. And again, coming from the main point, that in this coronavirus issue, we're doing the same thing. Throwing it away while selling food. I understand, even though you're giving this to people, that food is still being bought. Coming from your tax dollars. Using money from the stimulus package. The point is that this food is being thrown away. And it could be used anyway for free, or it could then be bought the same way, and you could actually maintain some semblance of this. My argument is they don't want any of that. This was meant to break down things because they're rebuilding it right in front of you, and they don't care if you starve. Another great article that I included that I really hope you'll read for yourself. By the way, for those maybe new, all the links will be posted in the pinned comment the moment that I'm done. So I hope you'll read this for yourself. The Hunger Games. How world imperialism creates famine around the world. The very people that you think are actually trying to fight for these people are the very people that are ensuring that it continues.